Hello, I'm Lori Smith, owner of 303 Creative, and this morning we received incredible news. The United States Supreme Court ruled in favor of free speech. This is a victory not just for me, but for all of us. Whether your views on marriage are similar to mine or perhaps different, free speech is for everyone. And today's ruling affirmed that the government cannot force anyone to say something they don't believe. This has been a really challenging 7-year journey, and I'm so grateful for everyone's prayers, encouragement, and support along the way. I hope today you can celebrate alongside with me. Free speech is worthy of protecting.
They say that America is divided politically, and we kind of agree. There's the dumb, and then there's us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that too harsh for the little snowflakes?
This is Right, Left, and Center. This is Right, Left, and Center. No matter what's going on in today's news, politics, social, environment, culture, we're talking about it unabashedly. Real, raw, direct, and funny. Let's rock. This is Right, Left, and Center. And this is your host, Will Jackson.
Welcome back, folks. We have another exciting week to cover. For the life of me, every time I want to make this up, I can't. I just simply can't. This Supreme Court is operating under a political stance. And what we have is a 5-3 plus one Uncle Tom and Clarence Thomas taking up a case that's hypothetical. Let's dive right into this. And I'm going to try to keep myself together here. But before we dive into this, so I just want to let everybody know that I've actually started a GoFundMe page for Right, Left, and Center. And you can click on the details at the bottom of the show where it says description. And that'll take you to the GoFundMe page. And here's the reason why I'm doing a GoFundMe page for Left, Right, and Center. We have been going strong for over a year and a half. And we are just blossoming. And I need new equipment. And I've got half of that money for the equipment, but I'm looking for my listeners to help donate to help me elevate this show. So if you're interested, $5, $2, $3, $1, $1.50, whatever, go to the GoFundMe link in the description, just up under the show, and click on the link and help us out. Now we got all of this. I do believe we got all the business out of the way. Yeah. So this week we had 3 major rulings. 3 from the Supreme Court. Most say it's a 6-3 ruling, but I call it 5-3 plus 1 Uncle Tom in Clarence Thomas and his wife, who is, I hope Jack Smith pulls her into the fold. Anyway, so there's these 6 Republican nominated or placed judges in the Supreme Court who has sought fit to tell us exactly how we should be living our lives and what we should be doing. They're not ruling on Constitution, because I believe that's where they're there for. They're ruling on what they feel is right for us as Americans. Now, the Supreme Court today is the likability of the Supreme Court today is at its all-time low. There's never been a Supreme Court that has less favorable marks than this one. And there's a reason why that is. Because of crazy stuff that is going on. I'm trying not to swear. I made a mission that I'm going to try to keep everything on point. Because, see, I don't care what your religion is or what your beliefs are. Be careful what you say and be careful how you say it. Because what you're doing is your personal opinion and your personal thoughts on your personal religion is affecting everyone else. Keep that in-house. Keep it in-house. See, I offer personal thoughts. That's me. And those personal thoughts are just based off of some of the ignorance that is going on in our society today, whether it be the 2-time disgrace, impeached, 1 term, twice indicted, soon to be 3, 4, 5 indicted, former president of the United States, or Lindsey Graham sounding like a little, you know what, on the backside and getting booed at a Trump rally in South Carolina. His own people are booing him. Or Kevin McCarthy, who doesn't have a spine. I mean, somebody in science should get a petri dish, grab his DNA, and see if they can grow him a damn spine. And all these lawyers that are out there who are trying to defend the undefendable in Donald Trump. And all his people are talking. But before I go down the rabbit hole, let's talk about some of these rulings and what they possibly could mean to Black, brown, and Asian Americans. Now let me back up some here, just real quick. So just on the affirmative action piece, Kavanaugh said in his confirmation hearing that he had to work his butt off to get into Yale. What he did not say, which is fact, is that his great-grandfather went to Yale as an undergraduate, making Kavanaugh a legacy. Now, Yale has already said 25% of their undergraduates are legacy students. And that's fact. They are legacy students. So for him to say he had to work his butt off or to actually assist in ruling against helping folks get some level of relief from their student debt, he's a liar. See, this is what majority of these upfront Republican folks are. They're liars. Not all Republican folks. Let me clear that up. Not all Republican folks. It is the people like Kavanaugh, Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Lindsey Graham. You know, the list goes on. And Donald Trump. And this list goes on. This is what they do. In fact, I'll tell you what, the Honorable Ketanji Jackson, she actually posed some questions. And let me play this for you.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you a hypothetical that just sort of helps me to flesh that out? Because I also heard you suggest earlier that there's something different about race. Maybe the person wouldn't sell to someone of a different race. So suppose you say that photography is expressive. Can you give me your thoughts on a photography business in a shopping mall during this holiday season that offers a product called Scenes with Santa? And this business wants to express its own view of nostalgia about Christmases past by reproducing classic 1940s and 1950s Santa scenes. They do it in sepia tone, and they are customizing each one. This is not off a rack. They're really bringing the people in and having them interact with Santa, children, because they're trying to capture the feelings of a certain era. But precisely because they're trying to capture the feelings of a certain era, their policy is that only white children can be photographed with Santa in this way, because that's how they view the scenes with Santa that they're trying to depict. Now, the business will gladly refer families of color to the Santa at the other end of the mall who'll take anybody, and they will photograph families of color in other scenes. So they're not discriminating against the families. What they're saying is Scenes with Santa is preserved for white families, and they want to have a sign next to the Santa that says only white children. Why isn't your argument that they should be able to do that? And maybe it is.
Because in the photograph itself, the objection is not contained in that photograph. But in addition, I think it's important to remind the court that—
No, don't leave. Sorry. What do you mean? I mean, the objection, just like your client's objection, is to expressions that violate their own views of what is being depicted. And so their view of what is being depicted is that a scene with Santa and a child on the lap and all of that in sepia tone, trying to harken back to the good old days, should only have white children in it. That's their firm belief. They are not willing to take photographs of Black, Hispanic, Asian children on Santa's lap. Why is that any different than a situation like this?
Because the specific objection that you're including is not necessarily in that photograph, but even if it were, this court has protected vile, awful, reprehensible, violent speech in the past, and it is never compelled.
No, I'm just asking you, why is the objection of the web designer, as Justice both Kagan and Sotomayor has pointed out, when we look at your examples, they just say things like, please come to the wedding on this day.
Precisely. It's an invitation to a wedding.
Okay, so if my hypothetical is an invitation to join me in the 1950s through looking at this photo, you say one is different?
I say that same clarity of the message isn't in that photo, but there are difficult lines to draw, and that may be an edge case, but this is not. We have a creator of speech and a very clear message.
creator, I couldn't take anymore. Creator of speech. See, this chick had this 7 years ago to, it was fighting to get to the Supreme Court as a, what if the state of Colorado, and turns around and says, well, you cannot do that because of the Emancipation Proclamation, or excuse my language. But anyway, I'm getting frustrated. I'm trying not to cuss. The Emancipation situation that happened to help protect slaves from being persecuted and treated different. This is what that law was based on in the state of Colorado. Kudos, state of Colorado. Now, this chick turns around and says to her attorney, this is all hypothetical. What if I say that I do not want to write in description or give that nuance of what that flavor that I do to websites that I do, and I don't want to do this for gay couples or married couples. And this is the argument. See what this attorney, and here's the crazy thing. So the Supreme Court took a case on hypothetical. Never in history has the Supreme Court taken a case hypothetically. In fact, all they needed to do with the clerks for the Supreme Court, all they needed to do was make a call just like a reporter did in Denver. Denver AP called it out. See, in the Denver AP, Associated Press, here's what it says. A Colorado web designer who the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Friday could refuse to make wedding websites for gay couples, cited a request from a man who was never asked to work with her. I'll say it again. Cited by a man who said he never requested to work with her. The request is a dispute from a person identified as Stewart. Wasn't the basis of the federal lawsuit filed 7 years ago. In fact, let me skip to the good part. Here's what Mr. Stewart said. I was incredibly surprised given the fact that I've been happily married to a woman for the last 15 years, said Stewart, who declined to give his last name for fear of harassment and threats. His contact information, but not of his last name, were listed in the court documents. He also added, he can design his own website, so why would he solicit her as a client or be her client? See, this is a bunch of bullshiggity. You can't, when I tell you we just simply can't make this stuff up, we cannot make this up, even on our worst day. Even if we want to be a liar like Trump, we cannot even contain this to be a lie. Who would ever thought that the Supreme Court would take on a hypothetical case and rule in favor of that hypothetical case? Now, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson actually stated what I've been thinking about this whole. I had to dig this up. This exchange was hard to find, and I had to dig this up. And I'm gonna tell you something. This is ridiculous. Now, what does this say? All right, so a interracial couple goes into a mom and pop store and they sit at the counter and they want a banana cream pie. Well, because the cook or the baker puts their creative spin on the banana cream pie, they can refuse service to an interracial couple. Is that what they ruled? Is that what they just ruled on? That means if I go down south, or anybody who's in an interracial or gay marriage or whatever, and they go down south and they sit at a mom and pop diner because they want to taste the most authentic Southern type cooking down there, and the diner owner says no, because we have a special seasoning that we signature in our mac and cheese, we can't serve you because that's our signature. That's what we don't believe in interracial marriages. I mean, am I overstepping here? And I'm just trying to keep it real. I mean, that is essentially what's going on. Wow. More after this.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center.
Right, left, and center.
News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
Oh boy. So what happens if Mr. Stewart, who was shocked, in fact, that he was totally shocked that he was named as a person in this Supreme Court lawsuit, that, excuse me, that he sues her for defaming him, for lying on him. What if he sues her? What if everyone who has a creative mind of their own in the state of Colorado shuns her business? Who would she sue? Can't sue me. Why? Because me, like every other organization out there who's talking about this, and I've checked, are appalled that she even did this. This is recklessness. This has set us back 50 years, 60. It's because of ignorance. Okay? If you're homophobic, fine. Don't care. All right? That's you. All right? You don't know if someone has that lifestyle unless they actually bring it out and tell you. So why search for it? See, what people do in their homes, in their bedrooms, and how they live their lives is between them and God, whether you are heterosexual or not. There are what? I mean, what if there's a working girl or a gigolo out there who wants to put up a website and wants her to add her little touch, will she then say, well, guess what? I'm not going to do that because it's against my belief that you are a prostitute or a male prostitute. I hope you're getting what I'm saying here. It makes no sense. So then now the one ruling that really blows my mind is the fact that our great president of these great United States, Joe Biden, ran on a promise. And that promise was that he was going to offer debt relief to families or people who are struggling to pay their student loan back. He didn't say he was going to wipe the debt out. He specifically said, no, you're going to pay some of that back. But what we're going to do is we're going to, kind of cut that back like 10%. Where there was some Republicans and some Democrats who actually wanted him to help boost the economy, just kind of get rid of it altogether. Just put like, if you make $60,000 or less, then you no longer have any debt. President Joe Biden said, no, we're not doing that. We can't do that. That's not a sound idea. We're talking 10%. I know that 10%, if someone told me that I only had to pay 10% of my credit card bill and have still have a great credit rating, that would mean a lot to me. Okay? That would mean a lot to me. Excuse me. But unfortunately, that is not the case. See, here we go again, where, you have people like a lot of this Supreme Court is operating beyond its actual scope as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not a legal scholar or anything like that, but I do believe that our Constitution was based on common sense. And the laws that are written within that Constitution, those amendments, are based on common sense. Let me explain. So, if you had a bunch of people who were drink when automobiles started and people were drinking and driving and people were getting killed behind drinking and driving, what did the government do? They devised a law that says, hey, if you drink and drive and you kill somebody or whatever, you're going to jail for a very long time. You're going to do some hard time. That's fact. Or if there's people who are using specific drugs and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of ODing going on and then you have these major drug dealers out there, then guess what? The government creates a law that says what? If you get caught distributing X amount of ounces or pounds of drugs, you're going to jail. See, the law is based on historical situations. Okay, just like, guess what? You cannot own anybody. That's called what? Slavery. So there were laws that was put in place to prevent that from ever happening again. Okay, there was a lot of discrimination right after that. Well, guess what? There were laws that was put in place to thwart the discrimination that was being placed upon people of color. And oh, by the way, let me slide back. So this chick who Lori, whatever her name is, Smith, she actually just set that back for us. And if she's listening, you can kiss my ass, bitch, because I'm going to tell you something. You just fucked us all over. I'm sorry. Was not trying to cuss, but guess what? That's a thorn in my side. Ignorance. So back to common sense. So this court is not operating under the Constitution and some of the laws that were based on common sense on how people should be treated and how we should help our fellow man. This is what needs to happen. And oh, by the way, I will say no more trigger warnings. I will not drop any more cuss words. I do apologize. I'm trying to clean that up. But here's President Joe Biden.
There you go, Mr. Secretary. Let me begin by saying I know there are millions of Americans in this country who feel disappointed and discouraged or even a little bit angry about the court's decision today on student debt. And I must admit I do too. Before I tell you the steps we're going to take and want to talk about I want to talk about what we've been able to achieve so far on student loan over the past few years. First, we made the largest increase in Pell Grants in over a decade, helping students from families who nearly all make less than $60,000 a year. Then we fixed the so-called, with the help of the department, Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. So the borrowers who got into public service, such as school teachers, police officers, social workers, service members, they actually got the debt relief they were entitled to under the law. Before I came to office, only 7,000 people had benefited from that program. Today, over 600,000 borrowers have received relief from that program. And it's still available. So many more people can be helped. And I encourage you to apply if you haven't already. You're still eligible. Go to studentaid.gov. It matters. Third, my administration improved the program from the Obama-Biden administration on income-driven repayment plan. That's what it was referred to as. Back then, we set a limit. Student borrowers would pay no more than 10% of their disposable income to pay back their debt in any one time. My administration is going to reduce that to 5%. It's now the most generous repayment program ever. No one with an undergraduate loan today or in the future, whether from a community college or a four-year college, will have to pay more than 5% of their disposable income to repay their loan. And that's income after you pay for the necessities like housing, food, and the like. Typical borrower is going to save about $1,000 a year. And if you keep up payments for 20 years without missing them, your total debt is forgiven after 20 years. That's what the program was before, but we've just reduced it to 5%. In addition to that, last year I announced my student debt relief plan, a plan that was on the verge of providing more than 40 million Americans with real debt relief, up to $10,000 for many borrowers and up to $20,000 for those who had gotten a Pell Grant. Nearly 90% of the relief would have gone to borrowers, 90% of it, making less than $75,000 a year. And no one making over $125,000 would qualify. This program was all set to begin. The website had been set up, the applications had been simplified so that it took less than 5 minutes to complete. Notice had been sent out to people about the relief they were eligible for. 16 million people had already been approved. The money was literally about to go out the door. And then Republican elected officials and special interests stepped in. They said, no, literally snatching from the hands of millions of Americans thousands of dollars in student debt relief that was about to change their lives. You know, these Republican officials just couldn't bear the thought of providing relief for working class, middle class Americans. Republican state officials sued my administration, attempting to block relief, including millions of their own constituents. Republicans in Congress voted to overturn the plan. I think every one. I don't think I had any Republican votes for this plan. At the same time, think about this. We all supported the Paycheck Protection Program. Remember PPP? You know, which was designed to help business owners who lost money because of the pandemic. It was a worthy program. But let's be clear. Some of the same elected Republicans, members of Congress who strongly opposed giving relief to students, got hundreds of thousands of dollars themselves in relief, members of Congress, because of the businesses they were able to keep open. Several members of Congress got over $1 million. All those loans were forgiven. You know how much that program cost? $760 billion. My program's too expensive. $360 billion more than I proposed in my student debt relief program. I was trying to provide students with $10,000 to $20,000 in relief. By comparison, the average amount forgiven in the PPP, the pandemic loan program, average amount forgiven was $70,000. Now a kid making $60,000, trying to pay back his bills, asking for $10,000 in relief. Come on, the hypocrisy is stunning. You can't help a family making 75 grand a year, but you can help a millionaire and you have your debt forgiven. My plan would not only have been life-changing for millions of Americans, it would have been good for the American economy. Free millions of Americans with a crushing burden of student debt. More homes would have been bought, more businesses would have been started, more couples would have had the confidence to start a family. Millions of people would have felt they could get on with their lives. These Republicans blocked all that. Now, in addition to the hypocrisy, some of these Republican Congress are shamelessly pushing to advance a bill in the coming weeks that gives hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and handouts to the wealthiest Americans. They still haven't given up on making permanent a $2 trillion tax cut that they never paid for. Never paid for. $2 trillion. So let me be clear. For Republicans in Congress, it's not about reducing the deficit. It's not about fairness in forgiving loans. It's only about forgiving loans they have to pay. Today, the Supreme Court sided with them. I believe the court's decision to strike down my student debt relief program was a mistake, was wrong. I'm not going to stop fighting to deliver borrowers what they need, particularly those at the bottom end of the economic scale. So we need to find a new way, and we're moving as fast as we can. First, I'm announcing today a new path consistent with today's ruling to provide student debt relief to as many borrowers as possible, as quickly as possible. We will ground this new approach in a different law than my original plan, the so-called Higher Education Act. That will allow Secretary Cardona, who's with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances. This new path is legally sound. It's going to take longer, but in my view, it's the best path that remains to providing for as many borrowers as possible with debt relief. I've directed my team to move as quickly as possible under the law. Just moments ago, Secretary Cardona took the first step to initiate that new approach. We're not going to waste any time on this. We're getting moving on it. It's going to take longer, but we're getting at it right away. Second, we know what many borrowers will need to make their hard choices, which their budgets are being strained now when they start to repay their monthly loan payments this fall. You know, we know that figuring out how to pay these added expenses can take time for borrowers, and they might miss payments at the front end as they get back into repayment. Normally, this could lead borrowers to fall into delinquency and default. But without their it will hurt their financial security, and that's not good for them or the economy. That's why we're creating a temporary 12-month, what we're calling on-ramp repayment program. And now, this is not the same as a student loan pause. It's been in effect for the past 3 years. Monthly payments will be due. Bills will not go out, and interest will be accruing. And during this period, if you can pay your monthly bills, you should. But if you cannot, if you miss payments, this on-ramp will temporarily remove the threat of default or having your credit harmed, which can hurt borrowers for years to come. Because the Department of Education won't refer borrowers. And the reason why that will work, they won't refer borrowers who miss payments to credit agencies for 12 months to give them a chance to get back up and running. Let me close with this. Our Republican officials say student loan relief is a giveaway to the privileged. You hear that loud now, the privileged. I love their concern for the privileged. But I know who student loan borrowers are in this country. So do all you. A couple putting off having a child until they can find their way to deal with their debt. That's who they are. They're a young putting off buying their first home so they can get out from under student loans. Hope on the horizon, thanks to relief that I planned last year. Today's court decision snatches it away from them. I get it. I get it. I hear this. and I'm concerned about. But today's decision has closed one path. Now we're going to pursue another.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, Left, and Center.
Right, Left, and Center.
News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
Delicious. I hope you got yours, because I got mine. Well, here's the problem I have with Joe Biden, the great Joe Biden, is that he will not open up to expanding the Supreme Court. I get it, but then again, I don't. The only thing that's left is this, is for the reasonable Republican Party who is not afraid, who has a spine like Liz Cheney, the great Liz Cheney, and those individuals who have spines like the honorable and great John McCain, excuse me, and Democrats throughout this country, along with progressives and etc. Here's how we do this. Take the House by overwhelmingly majority. Take the Senate overwhelmingly. And then start impeachment process for the Supreme Court. Let's start. That's how we do it. Impeach those 6 justices who saw fit to cauterize our society, who's telling us what's best for us. And we just, that's how you get it done. That's how we get it done. Okay? Let's get rid of all these mega folks, Georgia, Colorado, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, South Carolina. 2024, let's work on getting these people out. Let's put in, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. I don't care if they're progressives. I don't care. Just as long as they're not ignorant. As long as they don't have a Trump bone in their body. As long as they have a spine that helps them stand up, to look people in the eye, to look the American people in the eye and tell them that they're not lying. And they do know what they're talking about. You know, it kind of pains me to actually go here. And for those who know me, know that this is what pains me, to hear this man's voice. And I'm only going to play a little bit of it. But this is what, if you're following Trump, this is what you're listening to, okay? And also, this man can't keep his mouth shut, so he's making Jack Smith's case. He's actually putting himself in jail. That's what he's doing. And his attorneys continually, probably just ready to just run into the wall and crack their own skulls. Because this, check this cat out.
Free of charge. Mr. President, we'd like to have your soldiers to protect our border, I said. No, you cannot. No, we have to have that. No, you will never get that. I said, yes, I will. 100% I'll get it. No. I said, well, then I'm going to be putting a tariff of 25% on all cars coming into the United States made in Mexico, which used to be made in the United States, and it's going up from there. We would love to give you 28,000, so would you like some more? It was an amazing negotiation, but it gave us the strongest border that we ever had, and that was just 3 years ago, and now you look at what's happening. They're back to catch and release. They catch them and they release them in our country. And they say, come back. Just come back in 4 or 5 years for a child. Nobody comes back because they're too smart to come back. And deported illegal alien gang members by the thousands and thousands, MS-13, by the thousands, the tens of thousands, we got them out. Now they leave them in our country. We appointed nearly 300 federal judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices. And this week, those justices ruled to move our country forward with a merit-based system of education. How big is that? Isn't that big? Isn't that great? In other words, if you're a worker and you work very hard in school, you got fantastic marks, somebody that hasn't done nearly as well, who perhaps has not worked nearly as hard, will not be taking your place.
Let me stop this. Woo! This is a guy who was actually in school, and it's been reported, fact, it was dumb as a box of rocks. And somebody help me understand this. Why does it sound like every time this cat talks, he sounds like he's singing? I'm serious. Have you ever thought about that? Listen, he sounds like he's singing while he's talking.
On a school, college, or at a university, they're not going to be. We're going by merit. We're back to the old merit system that built our country. That was a big one. And then yesterday, the Supreme Court also ruled that President Biden is not allowed to wipe out hundreds and hundreds of billions, probably trillions of dollars in student loan debt, which would have been very unfair to the millions and millions of people.
Okay, so as you hear, the Trumpers are in the background. Fact check. President Joe Biden plan was $300 billion less than what the Republicans want to do as far as helping out the wealthy. Just a fact check.
Who have paid their debt through hard work and diligence. They paid their debt off, like that man right there. Right? They paid it off, and now somebody's going to get free rides. No. They ruled against it, 100% against it. Amazing. And they also gave religious liberty a tremendous win. You know that. Not to mention the fact that 1 year ago they ruled against Roe v. Wade. Something said never going to happen. And you have to know how to discuss this, giving pro-lifers a tremendous power to negotiate.
Final words right after this.
You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
I swear for cheese and crackers, people who follow Trump, who support Trump, I'll pray for you. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to pray for you. I think I've doled out enough insults to you idiots that I don't need to do anymore. You kind of do it yourself. This cat sound like he's singing. Okay, here's my final thoughts. The Supreme Court are supreme asses, except for three. I'll say it again. The Supreme Court is supreme asses. They've turned a constitutional court into a political court and trying to disguise it otherwise. You have Republicans who are piggybacking off of the success of the Biden administration. And then you have a orange guy who is at these rallies that continues to open his mouth and kind of seal the deal for what's his name? Jack Smith. And as I said earlier in this cast, that, you know, we can do away with all this. Just simply, let's do an overwhelmingly vote to get rid of all these dumb, spineless Republicans. Let's replace them with legitimate Republicans like Liz Cheney or the Honorable John McCain, Bob Dole type of Republicans. Okay, and then also this chick that's in Colorado, what's going on? Okay, email me, leftrc22@gmail.com. Tell me, what in the hell is going on? Is it in the water or all your women crazy? Just saying. That's I'm just asking. Because who does a hypothetical for a just in case? You know, I do have a hypothetical myself. Okay. And so here's my hypothetical. What if I file a lawsuit against ignorant people? I mean, with that, and I put a spin to it. Do you think the Supreme Court would take that? Oh, till next week, knuckleheads. Remember, go to the GoFundMe page to support Left, Right, Center. Love you guys.
You've been listening to Right, Left, and Center. Real and raw talk about the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. From Republicans to Democrats to progressives, we cover it all. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook. And for questions and comments, send your email to leftrc22@gmail.com. See you next time on Right, Left, and Center.